But anyway, that is actually a very loose analogy, but it really could work that way, because the photon in a laser or a maser strikes a electron that's at a higher state and drives it down to a lower state, and then that packet of energy that's released is entrained with the direction of the input signal. And it happens billions or trillions of times a second. And it happens so fast that over the width of this chamber, you could have a tremendous buildup of energy. A lot of energy could be entrained with that input signal and then collected from this chamber and then coming up to the outside. So the F-sharp chord is evident in the King's chamber. And that is actually, it was detected by Tom Danley. I think I said 95, but it was 96, I believe, when he did that. And it was detected by him without any external stimulus that he knew of. He had all his equipment turned off. There was nobody else in the pyramid. But the F-sharp chord was detected not in an audible frequencies, but in infrasonic, between 2 and 9 hertz. The other interesting thing is that when I wrote my book, we talked about the Earth's hum. I discussed that a little bit in my book, and it hadn't really. It was just a theoretical discussion, because it hadn't really detected the Earth's hum. And in 1998, actually it was published in 98, at the same time as my book, 2 Japanese scientists published a paper that they had actually detected the Earth's hum, and the frequencies were between 2 and 7 hertz. And so basically what we have is a device that's so finely tuned to the planet that it's selectively picking out frequencies from the Earth and drawing them through. I speculated that these were actually Helmholtz resonators. My thinking on that has changed a little bit, because the Helmholtz resonator is the King's chamber, and that is actually the Helmholtz resonator. These were resonators, to be sure, but they were not Helmholtz in that they did not hold the energy, build the energy up inside them. They converted the vibration into airborne sound, and then that was directed through into the King's chamber. Oh, there's me. Oh, there's me again. That is Dr. Hawass, my new best friend.
Yeah. He controls all the pyramids and everything, and he knows all our people.
Yeah, I met him in 2001, and with Gail Fallon, who was the producer of PAX Television, or Grizzly Adams, and so I used that entree to get into the Serapeum, and it was a very fruitful experience, really. Stephen earlier showed the Grand Gallery, and we're looking now at some of the staining on the. I believe this is the northern face of the Grand Gallery. But along the ceiling in 1999, when we were there, and I think I don't know whether that was when Stephen took his photographs, but they closed the pyramid for cleaning, and of course, you know, the speculation was, the scuttlebutt on the internet was that Hawass was really digging a tunnel over to the southern shaft, Gantenbrink's door, and he wasn't really cleaning. Well, they had cleaned it. It was obvious that they had cleaned it. But here we had these scorch marks so deep into the limestone that they couldn't clean them out. And you can really see that the thermal stress in the limestone. And referring back to what Stephen was saying earlier, when we were there with Ted, Robin Mitchell, and Ivy West in 1999, they flooded the wall of the Grand Gallery with light, and I saw the damage on the walls, and it was at each corbelling on the walls, and following the line right down, it went right down into a slot. So that to me was basically evidence that came in after the fact, after the theory had been proposed, and actually it supported the hypothesis. And really, if the hypothesis had been challenged, that question could have been posed. You know, that okay, well, if your theory is correct, then these conditions should exist in the Grand Gallery. Those questions weren't really posed to me, but the evidence is definitely there. And as you can see, these two ceiling beams right here, that's not the limestone that you find in the lower parts of the Grand Gallery. Gantenbrink's door. It was discovered in 1993. Upawat 2 went up the southern shaft and found this blockage. I was with a friend of mine, Jeff Summers, at the time when we saw that documentary, and he commented, "Well, they look like electrodes." And of course, you know, why couldn't I say that first? Because that, to me, is exactly what it was, exactly what they are or were. And the reason I say that is because if you take everything in total, the fact that at the lower parts of the shaft you have the limestone left or plate where the shaft is not connected to the chamber, the question is, okay, how do they feed the chemicals into the chamber? And when I lived in Indiana, I was having a septic system put in, and we had one of the civil engineers out who was doing a percolation test. And I came to him and I said, "Hey, Roland, what would you do if you were just working with limestone? Could you still do the same percolation test?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "You would actually measure the time it would take for the water to seep through. And basically, the elements that you would need to know in order to be able to determine exactly what that rate was would be the head pressure. What the weight of the column of water is on the exit point. So, using that and knowing, and also theorizing that this shaft was full of a chemical feeding into the chamber, it made sense to me that they would need to know at all times what the head pressure was, and in order to know what the head pressure was, they would have to have some kind of a device to signal when the column of chemical had dropped. And so basically what we have is a fluid switch, where when the column drops, then the column of water, the chemical, gets lighter, so the head pressure gets less. In order to maintain the head pressure, you've got to keep the shaft full. I'd also, in the book, I'd written about how the shafts were replenished with this chemical. And these are shafts on the outside, on the east side of the Great Pyramid. There's also shafts on the south side of the Great Pyramid, too. So I had theorized that they had some kind of underground chamber, but when I found out about these shafts, it made sense to me that they would be replenishing the shafts here from the outside rather than an underground chamber. And so we have the southern part right here, and the southern shaft coming out on the south side, and then the northern shaft coming out on the east side. We talked about the southern shaft having a hydrochloric acid solution, a dilute solution in it. We see that the limestone is eroded on this particular part. I'd also, by the way, made a prediction before another exploration of the southern shaft in 2001, was it, or 2002, when Fox Television and National Geographic did their exploration with Pyramid Rover. And I posted an article on my website, What Will Be Found Behind Gantenbrink's Door, because for the Giza power plant the hypothesis to hold together, they'd had to be predictive, it had to be falsifiable, and evidence that was uncovered had to support it, or